Bold Predictions, Chapter 26. Basically, we have aggregated everything over the past couple of months that you claim you believe in so much that you would bet your own hard-earned money on. And here's the first one for tonight. Hendon Hooker, who we shared some time with at SEC Media Days, Camden said Hendon Hooker will be a Heisman finalist by the end of the season. I made this one an 8. It's not doubting Hendon Hooker. It's just really hard to be a Heisman finalist. I have producer Jesse tell me he's about 6th or 7th when it comes to the way quarterbacks stack up in the overall Heisman odds. Now, the Heisman odds are really weird. Right now, if you go to various books, you could find him at plus 4,000. You could find him at plus 6,000. So I would very, very much encourage you, if you're going to shop the Heisman market, do just that. Shop the Heisman market. Don't just trust one book. So we need two things to happen for Hendon Hooker to win to be a Heisman finalist. We need Tennessee probably to hit their over. They're over under 7.5 wins. I think we need them in that 9-win range in order for Hendon Hooker to be in the conversation. Also, he's got to be playing at a level where they are winning 9 games, so that kind of goes hand in hand. He needs better numbers this year, and he had really good numbers last year, but we are talking again about getting him to New York City. And so if you look at what it normally takes to get a quarterback there, he probably needs about 1,000 more yards passing than he had last year. Now, the touchdown to interception ratio is good, but he probably needs 5 to 10 more touchdowns. Probably needs to be closer to 40 or 45 than he is 30. Otherwise, numbers are good, man. Numbers are really good. It just goes to show you, even with as good a year as he had last year, he needs that much better a year this year to be a Heisman finalist. Also, you've got to respect the quarterback landscape out there. Even in the SEC, there are a lot of good quarterbacks down here this year. But then you've got guys nationally, like C.J. Stroud. What kind of year is he going to have? What kind of year is Bryce Young going to have in the SEC? Is there room? How much room do we have? And sometimes that's a zero-sum game, especially when it comes to Heisman tabulation. So I went with an 8 here. And I don't think that's really lofty because I think it was a 6 or 7 even for Bryce Young, and the guy won the award last year. It's just hard to do it. It's hard to be a Heisman finalist. Next up, we're going to the Pac-12. Mike said Utah will beat USC by double digits this year. Now, both of these teams, Utah and USC, they have over-under preseason win totals of 9. They are both plus 200 to win the Pac-12. So Vegas looks at these teams, and they pretty much see identical preseason profiles. The game is at Utah this year, so Utah has that going for them. There was really interesting preseason action when this line came out. I think USC opened as a favorite, and it kind of fluctuated. So I think what Mike has in his mind, that a lot of us still do, is last year. Because there were really 3 types of games that fit this profile. They being Utah, they played USC last year. They beat them 42-26. Check 1 for the double-digit win. They played Oregon twice last year, did Utah, and they beat them 38-7, double-digit win, and 38-10 in the Pac-12 title game, double-digit win. So basically every game that kind of was similar to this one, they won by double digits last year. I guess the world, and me included in the world, wants to know how different USC is this year, because there are two different paths you could easily see this game taking. The first one would be a world where Utah just so thoroughly owns the line of scrimmage, it looks like the Oregon games last year. And even though they're not bombing away and they're not throwing for 550 on you, over the course of 4 quarters, they lean on you and you break. Listen, that wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility. A whole lot of flash, but maybe not as much meat and potatoes on that USC team year one. I don't think that'd be stunning to Lincoln Riley. I mean, he's been pretty outspoken about how they're still a work in progress, especially along the lines of scrimmage. But there is another world, and the other world is they've done an adequate enough job retooling via the transfer portal, and the offensive firepower they have makes it impossible for Utah to get any margin on them. Even if Utah were to win, probably be a closer game. Or there's the alternate universe within scenario B where USC just wins the game. So because of that, I made this a 7. It's not hard for me to see Utah winning the game, but the double digit, that's where it stretched a little bit, but it's only a 7. I respect that Utah team, and I saw what they did last year. Love to see them play Florida week 1. Love that. Next up, this one's pretty bold too. Chris said Oklahoma. They're going to go 11-1. They'll make the playoff, and, important follow-up here, they will win a semifinal game. Now, so far, they're 0-4 in that spot. So this would be the first playoff game that Oklahoma has won. One thing you've got to love here, for this Oklahoma team, period, is you got to love the combination of Dylan Gabriel and Jeff Lebby. That is quarterback via the transfer portal, and of course the new offensive coordinator came in by way of Ole Miss. Another thing, if you look at their schedule, that you have to like is their three toughest games in conference are Baylor, they get them at home, Texas is a neutral site game, obviously, and Oklahoma State's at home. So they don't face any of their three toughest opponents in a true road setting. Now, having said that, they do go to Nebraska, they go to Iowa State, they go to West Virginia, Texas Tech, they head out to Cactus Country. If you know, you know. And most of you don't, but Texas Tech has been on fire as of late. 11-1's tough here, but 11-1 is doable. It's just that you added in the caveat, they're going to go 11-1 and they're going to win a playoff game. And so when you marry those two things, I have no choice but to go with an 8 here. Because I think about 11-1, and the over would hit. I think their over-under is 9 or 9.5. So, you know, that's doable. I mean, Oklahoma's a very good program. But when you talk about getting to a playoff type setting, and you may face Bryce Young in Alabama, you may face Georgia, or maybe C.J. Stroud in Ohio State, do I trust that they have the offense to respond? Do I trust that? And it's hard for me to say it right now, especially when we're looking this far down the road. So the 11-1, not the craziest thing in the world, but when you marry it with a playoff win, I got to put at least an 8 on the boldness scale there. Next up, we were running numbers on this next one because I don't know how this was possible mathematically, but you know what? Let's give it a go. Connor said Alabama will not have a single 1,000-yard receiver this year, but Bryce Young will nearly match his production from a year ago. Bryce Young won the Heisman last year. He threw for nearly 4,900 yards. So we were busy. I mean, we had to break out the calculator. Like, literally, how do you do this? How do you throw for that many yards and not have a single 1,000-yard receiver? Best we can tell, you would need about 7 guys to receive about 7 or so 100 yards, but none of them really break through. Bryce Young last year, he threw for 303 touchdowns in 10 games. At least 3 touchdowns and 300 yards in 10 games. 47-7 touchdown interception. So you remember all the numbers. He won the Heisman. They had 2 of them last year go over 1,000. That was Jamison Williams and John Mechie. Big prayers out to John Mechie today. A form of leukemia, for those of you who missed that, released from the Houston Texans today. I mean, John Mechie is one of our guys. So we're pulling for John Mechie. He'll pull through that. But that was tough news to see today. He was a 1,000-yard receiver last year. Jamison Williams was a 1,500-yard receiver last year. They're going to have at least one. Or either Alabama's offense falls off a cliff. But there is no world I see where Bryce is matching that production from last year and they don't have at least one. Whether it's Jermaine Burton, I'm a big Ja'Cory Brooks guy, but I mean, they've got, Tyler Harrell is the Louisville transfer. They've got options down there. One of them's breaking through, or either Bryce is not matching that production. So I went with a 9.5 on this one. That's way too bold for me to see. Last one, I'm going to have a little helpful reference over here to the side for this last one. Mall Cop 7, big friend of the program, said, Kanata Mumpfield puts up better numbers than Jordan Addison. Let me remind you who we're talking about here. Mumpfield is a transfer from Akron, and he transferred to Pitt. Jordan Addison won the Biletnikoff Award last year. He transferred to USC. And what we're saying here is we're just going to plug and play. And we're going to have better production from the Akron transfer than the Biletnikoff Award winner last year. I made this one a 9.5, but don't take my word for it. Let me read you producer Jesse's review in his show notes that he sent to me. He sent, to the person who sent this one, CYT. I know a lot of you listen to the show with your children, so I'm not going to let you know what that acronym means. Just figure it out for yourself. Jesse continues. We're predicting that Kanata Mumpfield, the number 161 ranked player in the portal, will top the stats of the Biletnikoff winner who caught balls from the only quarterback taken in the first round of the NFL draft in Kenny Pickett. Producer Jesse is not sold. In fact, producer Jesse's boldness scale was a 10 out of 10. I just went 9.5. So I've got Kanata Mumpfield's back relative to the producer Jesse's of the world. This is not happening. You want me to tell you another reason why this is not happening? It's not anything personal against Kanata Mumpfield. Jared Wayne, who for all I know may end up being their number 1 receiver this year, he caught 47 balls for 658 yards last year. So that's the first thing standing in someone's way of just hoovering up all that offensive production. But the other thing, if you haven't been paying attention, Pitt head coach Pat Narduzzi has been very loose at the mouth over the past week. I don't know what in the world was happening with him up there. I mean, he's on every podcast with over 15 listeners talking about how they threw the ball too much last year. He took his offensive coordinator, Mark Whipple, double crow hopped, and just chucked that body all the way under the nearest bus. Again, go look it up. It's not hidden. It's out there for the world to listen to. And he was talking in the last week about how they're averaging 10 yards per carry against teams like Wake Forest, and they're still throwing the ball. Well, I took from that they are not throwing the ball nearly as much this year. I think they're going to run it a lot more. And so I don't think the production will be there to be had either way. But when you combine both those things, no. This is a 9.5, and if Kanata Mumfield proves us wrong, he just proves us wrong.